tiny friends, welcome back. I know it's been a while, but since my last video, I have been trying to work on this camper as much as possible. However, I'm super excited to share today's episode because I have gotten so much done and it looks like I'm going to have to make one more video to finish off this camper. And at the end of today's video, we'll have a good look at what this camper looks like inside, unfurnished. So today I'll be completing the installation for the lights, the music box, the walls, the ceilings and floors, and 2 cabinet spaces. So lots to get to. Before I get started, we'll do a quick recap on all of the work that I've done so far. I think that the lighting is just right, and you can get a really good look at this rust. I love how this rust turned out. It's very gritty. You can really see and feel the texture. It has really good color. I think that the cayenne pepper solution mixed with the clear tacky glue and the water had really good results for rust. You might want to give that a try if you're looking to add rust to one of your projects. So here is the overall look for the roof. You got the front side with the door, the back side with the lights, the front side with the hitch and propane tank, and the wheels. The first thing I want to do today is install the music box. It's super easy because the holes are already drilled and all you have to do is just add the screws and the turn key. I haven't tested this out yet, so I'm going to wind it up, listen to how it sounds, and see what song it plays. I really don't recognize that song, but if you do, please let me know in the comments below what it is. The holes that you're seeing on the floor are pre-drilled holes for the wires to the lights. They go through to the bottom and can be connected underneath the camper. Beginning with the lights, it's a big project. I've gone through my stash and pulled out some things that I thought may have potential. I may be taking these lights apart and recreating new lights with the parts and pieces. This little lantern light came in a 4-pack from Temu, and this little green gooseneck light came from Miss Charlotte. I'm thinking maybe I'll combine the parts and pieces. What's going to happen at this point, I really don't know yet. Here's everything that came with the kit, and this circuit board is a mystery. It doesn't say anything about what this is or how to install it in the instruction booklet. And a lot of people that have this kit don't know what it is, so it usually just gets tossed to the side and never gets used. I had 2 guesses for what this might be. I was thinking maybe this was a speaker to improve the sound on the music box, or maybe it was something that belonged to the light system, since the wires are pretty much the same. When I did my research, I found both answers. I was really hoping to have an explanation as to what this is and how to install it. For some of you that don't know what it is and may have this kit and haven't put it together yet, I am still not quite sure as to what this is or how to install it. The kit comes with 4 lights. I've tested all of them. They're super bright and they have really good durable wires, which is surprisingly great because it lessens the chance of the wires breaking while you're installing the lights, like some of the cheaper nano chip lights may do. Going back to this mysterious circuit board, so the most common answer was it is a sound sensor for your lights. And I thought, oh my gosh, that just upped the level on this kit. because you can clap on, clap off. I don't know if it was a voice or a sound, but I installed it and I did not get it to work for me. So if anybody knows exactly what this is or how to install it, please let me know in the comments below and I'll see if I can get it working for the next video. Now let's make some lights. My inspiration for the first two lights are these MCM cone lights, and I really feel like they're going to be perfect for this old camper. So I'm working on one. I still need to add the base, but I'm going to show you how I got there. Here's another image. I really like this one because of the pattern, but I'm going to stick with a basic design. And I like the way that you can angle them upward or downward. So the basic design is such fine lines, and I do not have a steady hand for that. So I created a printy template. I'm going to use some of this thin acetate sheet, a little ring that came from a bra strap, a little metal gold embellishment. I'm not really sure where this is from, a jump ring, and a bead cap. I'm using one of the kit lights, and I'm going to use this K&S metal shaped brass tube. Beginning with cutting out the template. I didn't add a little tab on the template, but I know I'm going to need one. So I'm just going to cut one out as I'm cutting this down. Then I'm just going to place it on the acetate sheet and use it as a template to cut out the same exact piece. This is just regular printing paper, and I'm using tacky glue to glue this piece together. I just put a little bit on the tab, and now I can roll it up on itself and glue it down. And I'll go in and trim off any excess. For the acetate sheet, I'm going to use this threaded double-sided carpet tape. When you take it off of the roll, it doesn't have a backside on it, so it's super sticky and really difficult to work with. And once it sticks to your fingers, that's it. It kind of just gets ruined. But I have tried every glue that I have in my supplies, and nothing was working to keep this piece closed. This was the only thing that actually worked, and it works really well. So I'm going to keep this in mind for future projects. Once I get this rolled over, I can just close it up and it stays closed. I have no idea how I got through this and managed to get this little thing closed because this tape is super sticky. Now I can just slide the paper cone inside the plastic cone and trim off the top. And that's it. I won't need to glue the paper to the plastic. It's going to stay put when I'm done. I'm just going to cut off a very small piece of this rod, and I've carefully poked a hole in the back of the cone for the wires with my Dollar Tree poker. Next, I simply fed the wires through the inside of the cone and out the back side. I've already begun pulling the wires through this tiny rod. It's a super tight fit. I believe this might be the smallest rod that I've ever worked with, and the wires are really thick. I'm kind of nervous because I really had to manhandle this light, so I'm hoping that it's still going to work. It's always a good idea to repeatedly test your lights while you're creating them to make sure that you haven't damaged them and they still work. Now I'm making the base, and I'm starting with poking a hole in the middle of this little metal embellishment. Feed the wires through the hole in the middle just to make sure that the hole is big enough. This little rod is a little longer than the previous rod, but I'm going to see if I can maybe stick it in there a little more and bring it in some. Not much of a difference, but it'll do. I'm adding a little super glue around the middle hole, and I'm just adding the jump ring around that. And then I'm adding some super glue to the plastic ring and placing the metal piece on top of that. I painted the base with a chrome gold just to give it that MCM brassy look. For my third light, I want to make some sort of a shelf lantern, and I took apart the Temu lantern, and this clear piece is too small for the kit light. I went into my stash and I pulled out a few plastic glasses, thinking that I may possibly be able to use one of these for my lantern. So I just picked a variety of different shapes and textures just to see if any of these may work out. But I really like the shape of this one, and I think I'm going to use this one. I'm using my flush cutters to trim off the glass stem. And then I'm just going to drill a hole in the bottom, making sure that the hole is big enough for the wires. And then I can feed the wires through from the inside of the glass. I'm going to use this plastic piece off of the Temu lantern to create a base. So it's really easy to drill a hole in it. It's going to look something like this. Right now I'm adding super glue to glue the two pieces together. But I'm not finished with this base yet. It still needs one more piece. I think this little bead cap will be perfect for it. So I'm just going to glue these two pieces together as well, and that will complete the base. I found this piece in my stash. I have no idea what it goes to, but it just keeps calling my attention. So I think it needs to be part of this lantern in some way. I really like the shape of it because it has this protruding section where it kind of acts like a real lid. So I glued the top two pieces together, and I painted this clear plastic piece gold to match the bead cap. I think I'm going to leave it copper and gold because I like the way it looks together. Now it's time to test the light to see if it still works. I really like this little lantern, and I think it's going to look nice in the camper. Now going back to my cone lights, I can add the bases on. I'm just going to glue these pieces together, and there's my two little MCM cone lights. Now that I have 3 lights done, I'm moving on to make one more. This is a lighting kit that is designed by Evan Designs, but I purchased this from my local hobby store. The sticker says $11.99, but I paid $9.50. That might actually be the price listed on their website. I'm not really sure, but this is a dollhouse mini-sized lighting package. And this is everything you get. It's a complete lighting kit. You get the cell battery, the instructions, battery holder, and a switch, 2 shrink tubes, and 2 lights. That is a great kit. They may offer this on their website, but I'm not really sure. I really think that it's an amazing little kit. It gives you everything you need. And you can also buy all of these parts separately on their website. I just wanted to show you a tip. For those of you that don't have a lot of experience working with lights in your projects, you can see that I'm twisting the wires together. And the top part you can see is kind of spaced out a little more. The bottom part is more of a tighter twist. You can get that tight twist by pinching the 2 wires and twisting them at the same time. This will help you feed your wires through a smaller space. I really like working with the Evan Design lights because their wires are pretty durable. And so far, I haven't had any Evan Design lights break on me. I'm not saying that it won't happen. I'm not going to be able to use the Evan Design light because the wires are too thick for the tube. I'm going to use a light with smaller wires. The only problem is this is a cool white and I really need a warm white, but I have an idea. So maybe I can change the light color to glow a softer, warmer white. I'm going to create the same base that I made previously for the cone lights. I'm using a very small eyelet grommet and I'm attaching it to the bottom part of the neck. This part will attach to the base. For the shade, I'm going to add a larger ring on the top, right around the hole. This ring came off of some sort of a tack, so I just clipped the end pieces off. I'm also going to add a little eyelet grommet inside the ring. This will help make the hole smaller so there isn't any open space when I attach the tube. For this light, I want all of the metal to be silver, so I'm painting over all of the gold with my silver chrome paint pen. Later on, I'll add a little rust and make it look older. Now I'm going to create a light bulb using hot glue. Some of you may have seen me use this technique before in previous light videos. If you would like to see a more slower and thorough tutorial on how to create this light bulb, I will put a link to a couple videos in the description box below. In past videos, I have used this technique to create a whole light bulb. But for this light, I'm going to need the bulb to be more rounder. I'm using a crystal clear hot glue stick. And the trick is to resist the temptation and the urge to touch the bulb. That could cause the glue to become cloudy and lose its clarity. Now I can feed the wires through, and I think this bulb is going to work. You can just see a hint of the bulb sticking out from the shade. Since I need a warm white, which reflects a yellow light, I'm painting the bulb with a yellow Sharpie marker. And I'm hoping that it's going to turn the cool white into a warm white. We'll see the results in the end. I still am unsure where I want to put the lights, but I'm going to continue on to the walls because it kind of goes hand in hand. Before I even started working on the camper, the very first thing I did was create templates for the walls because I knew I was going to need them. And at this point, I am so glad I took the time to do that step because it's going to make my job so much easier when it comes to creating the walls. For this section here, I'd like to break it up. I'd like to cover the kitchen area and above the door with a 1970s wallpaper. Most of the walls will be covered with a wood paneling that I'm creating with brown cardstock using a ruler and my pencil. Next, I'll take a very small ball stylus and run over the pencil lines. Then I use a larger ball stylus and do the same thing. This will create the spacing in between the panels. Then I can simply trace out the template and cut it out. Once my pieces are cut out, I'm giving them a nice even layer of antique wax. Once the wax dries, I repeat the same step with the ball stylus. After the ball stylus, I use dry chalk pastels just to bring out those spaces a little more. For the kitchen wallpaper, I picked out a 70s sample swatch that I really like, and then I just repeated the pattern in my Photoshop. It's not perfect, but it blends in so well that you don't even notice. I really love the color palette. I printed it out on white cardstock and gave it a layer of satin varnish by Duraclear. The varnish really makes it look and feel like vinyl. Right now, I'm just using tacky wax to put the wallpaper into place. I really need to get a good visual of what these walls are going to look like. Having the wallpaper in place is really going to help me figure out where I would like to install the two cone lights. Once I figure out which walls the lights will be going on, those walls and the lights will have to be installed together at the same time. I know for sure that I would like to install one light on this wall panel that sits next to the kitchen wallpaper, but I still haven't figured out where I would like to install the second light. I poked a hole with my poker and now I'm just feeding the wire through. I'm trying to decide if I want to face the light up or down, and I think it's going to face down towards the table. I added glue to the base of the light and glued it into place. For the back side, I just taped the wires down with painter's tape. This whole panel will be eventually glued onto the wall. Before installing the light, I did forget to seal it with a varnish. I'm going to use a matte varnish by Duraclear for all the wood paneling. The antique wax already has a slight shine to it, but the matte varnish will lock in the chalk pastel, enhance the wax, and give it a slight sheen without a glossy look. This only needs one coat of varnish. After I apply the varnish, if any excess varnish is left behind, it may be very noticeable. So I like to go over the whole piece by lightly feathering my brush to even out all of the areas. The template that I created for this side of the camper, I think I accidentally threw that away. So I have to figure this side out on my own. I decided to use the 1970s wallpaper just to go around this arch. That will tie in the wallpaper and add some color to this side. I'm using a scrap piece of wallpaper that I cut previously and it didn't fit. I'm just bending it over the arch and marking where I need to cut them down. Once I get all my pieces cut out, I'm going to use tacky glue and add a very thin strip of chrome trimming. I'm going to do this to all the walls. I've added tacky glue onto the back side and I'm just using a damp brush to spread it out evenly. I started off by installing all of the walls that won't have any lights attached to them. I thought it would be easier and save some time since these walls won't have any wires attached to them. For the floor, I chose a very common 70s linoleum pattern that some of you might recognize. I really love this one because it has a bit of that olive green that I really want to use in the kitchen, a little bit of orange and yellow that I also want to tie in to the color palette of this camper. But this pattern came in all different colors. I created this floor the same way I created the wallpaper. I used a very small sample swatch and pieced it together. I also sealed in all the color with a satin varnish. Next, I'm going to go in with a very small ball stylus and just create the grooves and the spaces in between the tiles. After the small stylus, I go in with a slightly bigger one. This gave the floor some nice texture and a little more realism. I only gave the floor one coat of the satin varnish, and I thought it would be enough to protect it from the ball stylus. But I still managed to scratch off some of the color. So I'm going in behind all those areas with some brown chalk pastel. I needed to age the floor anyways, and I really like this random pattern that it's creating. I laid the floor into place, and I'm using some of the pieces to help me figure out where I need to wear the floor down a little more, where there would normally be more common use and higher traffic. To finish it off, I'm going to add a second coat of satin varnish to lock it all into place. Now this floor looks like a real piece of linoleum. Okay, tiny friends, I jumped ahead because I have so much more to get to. So the walls are up, the floor is installed, I have both of my cone lights up, and all of the trimming. Okay, moving over to the back section of the camper. I still have to install the ceiling panel, and back here I want to create an overhead cabinet space with 2 doors. Underneath this window, I want to create a 2-tier sideboard cabinet. So that's what I'll be working on next. I already prepped all the pieces that I'm going to need to create my ceiling panel and the overhead cabinet. And since the last 2 flaps kind of fold down, it gave me an idea to just build on top of those 2 panels. I still need to frame out this window, which would be the skylight. So I'm thinking about gluing down the wood, gluing down the front panels to that, cutting out the opening because I do want one of the doors to open. This will be the bottom part, and then I'll use the burlap ribbon and just frame that out for the doors. Okay, I've created the front section of my cabinet, and you can see this door opens. I've added hinges, which I really never have good luck with, but I actually let this one dry overnight, and it's working wonderfully. So I guess that's the trick, which I usually don't have any patience for. Next, I'm going to create the 2-tier sideboard cabinet, and I'm just drawing a little sketch for you to give you a visual so you can kind of get what I'm making. It's going to go along the whole wall. It's going to have a top tier and a lower tier, and then a cabinet door. This one won't be functional, but I will be able to use the 2 shelves on top. Here's what it looks like. The pre-drilled hole is for the lantern that will sit on the top tier. I'm going to use this rectangle piece for the door. I want to add a design to it, but I just want it to be basic. So I'm going to use my needle file just to etch out around the edges. I'll just glue it into place with tacky glue. To paint this cabinet, I'm starting with a base coat of Cinnamon by Folk Art. Once that dries, I'll add a nice layer of antique wax. The cinnamon kind of looks orangey right now. It's going to make a really nice undertone for the 70s palette. When I'm applying the antique wax, if I want a lot of wood grain left behind, I use a more coarse brush. If I don't really want a lot of the wood grain left behind, then I use a softer brush. Either way, I always apply it in an even layer because as forgiving as antique wax is, it really shows everything. For better results, try to apply nice even strokes, blend in any excess around the edges, and try not to leave any fingerprints behind. For the doorknob, I'm going to use this tiny little Cris & Bond knob that came with the Cris & Bond sewing machine kit. I'm just adding a little bit of tacky glue in a little hole that I poked in the door panel, and now I can just put the knob in place. I painted the knob with an antique gold, and we'll take a closer look at the results when I install it. The last thing I need to finish up is this ceiling panel and the overhead cabinet. I've cut out the opening and broke the side panel, but it won't make a difference because it's going to be all glued down. Right now, my main focus is to line up the 2 openings. Okay, I have it glued down and ready to be installed. I also added some chrome trimming. I put the ceiling panel in for a dry fit, and it is so snug. I really don't want to pull on it too hard and risk ruining it. So I'm going to have to work around this situation. I'm going to add a line of tacky glue right along the bottom edge. This is actually being placed right behind the front panel, but on the bottom. Then I can carefully and slowly slide the front panel up to line it up to the edge. I'm just going to hold it in place until it catches and takes hold. I added some more wall paneling to the section of the ceiling behind the lights and cut down a couple of the panels to the ceiling. And now I'm using that double-sided carpet tape to lay this in place. I know it is not going to go anywhere. Now all I have left to do is trim out the window with the chrome trimming. Here's a good look at the sideboard cabinet. I added a little bit of black chalk pastel just to age it up and give it some more dimension. But on the very bottom, I filed out a tiny little mouse hole to feed the wires through. I glued the cabinet into place with tacky glue. And the last thing I need to do is finish hooking up these lights. I've already hooked up the negative side, and I'm going to show you how I did that with the positive side. I'm going to use hot glue to glue down the battery pack, but I'm still able to slide the panel out to change the batteries, and on the other side is the power switch. I used painter's tape to tape down all the connecting points. I'm using this double strand electrical wire that I had left over from my very first dollhouse. This type of wire comes in really handy for a job like this. If you score it carefully down the middle, you can pull the two strands apart. Since I have lights on both sides of the camper, one will reach to one side and the other will reach to the other side. And since they're both positive, the end wire will connect to the positive wire. This is an extension wire. It doesn't have a positive or a negative side, so it can be hooked up to either or, and it can be hooked up to both. I know this doesn't look very pretty, but the good news is it's on the bottom of the camper and it's not going to be seen. Now it's time to see if these lights still work and check out the final results. Okay, tiny friends, the lights are working. It was a success, and I'm super happy with the results. And I also added the handles onto the overhead cabinet doors. You won't really be seeing the blue tape on the floor because that's going to be covered up with furniture in the next video. I just wish that I spent a little more time on the trimming because some of it is off. And for the ceiling panel, I didn't use the chipboard. I just used aluminum tape. So when I put it up into place, it began to crease because it was very thin. But other than that, I am really in love with this little 70s camper, and I cannot wait to move somebody in. I will also be covering up the original paint you see around this opening with either a chrome trimming or painting it with the chrome. But I'll do that before I come back for the last video, so that will already be done. Here's a good look at the gooseneck light that I installed outside above the door. I'm also going to turn this on and show you if my idea of painting the light bulb with the yellow Sharpie marker to transform this cool white into a warm white light actually worked. I don't really think they had cool white lights in the 70s. I think they were all warm white, but my idea actually did work. I really love the overhead light above the door and how it just illuminates the door stoop. Okay, tiny friends, that completes today's episode. I really hope you guys enjoyed what I have done so far. Let me know in the comments below what you're thinking about this 1970s camper. If this is your first time visiting TinyKeyHoleMinis and would like to see more of my miniature creations, please subscribe and don't forget to hit that top bell notification button to be notified every time I upload a new project so you don't miss out. Next episode, we'll finish off and complete this old 70s camper. I'll add some furnishings and accessories from the original kit, and I plan on creating a small yard scene as well. If you've missed any of the previous videos for this series, don't worry, I made a playlist. So you can just click that link in the description box below. I'll also include the light bulb links if you would like to learn how to make a light bulb with hot glue. I still have a few more accessories to make. I may do that in the meantime before coming back to finish this off. We'll have to see. As always, I like to welcome all my new subscribers and thank you all so much for watching and all your support. Until next time, tiny friends, I hope you all have a lovely holiday season, and I will see you all on the mini side.